Hey everyone, Josh here at House Guitars, and I'm coming to you from my shop in Goderich, Ontario. What I want to demonstrate for you today is how I level out the guitar sides on my belt sander. And what I've got here is a guitar body. I've just recently glued the top and the back onto the body. And now before I can cut the binding channels, I need to level out the sides, make sure everything is even, that there's nice flowing even curves, no flat spots, those kind of things before I cut my binding channels, because if there's any irregularities in the sides, that's going to transfer into my binding channels when I cut those channels, and it will really show up if any of that makes it into the binding process. Now, you can easily level out the guitar sides by hand using blocks, sandpaper strapped to a flexible spring steel backing, those sorts of things, and those are all great, and I certainly do some hand sanding to clean it up. But if you have to do that for every guitar, and especially if you're working on guitars where maybe it's made out of ebony or cocobolo, some wood that's hard to sand, it just turns into a lot of sanding if you're doing it entirely by hand. And that process can be greatly sped up using the belt sander. The great thing about the belt sander is it is, in this case, 6 inches wide, so it covers the full width of the side. So you can be sure as you're sanding, everything is getting leveled out for the width of the guitar side, instead of, if you were only sanding on part of it. The advantages to, say, a belt sander versus maybe hand sanding with a rolling pin type sander, that's also popular. The rolling pin sander, if you were to hold it in one place too long, you could very quickly sand a groove. I prefer the flat belt sander. The flat belt sander for the outside curves on the guitar body, because it just seems to be easier to get everything nice and even and smooth. Now, I want to explain everything ahead of time, because I won't be able to talk while I'm doing the sanding. You will see I use the end of the belt sander a little bit in the waist area just to get in where I can't get with the flat portion, but I can't get right into the tight curves on this model. This is my OM, it's got kind of a tight waist. So what I'll do is I'll just get it close, and then I will be finishing that up by hand off camera later. Couple key things. It is very easy to wreck a guitar body using a belt sander like this. If you just forget yourself for a few moments, hold it in place too long, you will sand right through. Your sides are only 2 millimeters thick, 80 to 90 thou. It doesn't take much. So what I've got here is a very well-worn 80 grit belt, and I usually leave my belts on for a very long time. I like them broken in like that so that it doesn't sand too quickly or aggressively when I'm doing these kind of operations. The other key when you're sanding with a power sander, that goes for a rolling pin type sander as well as a stationary belt sander, is always keep the guitar body moving. And you'll see that when I bring the guitar body into contact with the belt, it's basically already moving in the direction I want to go, and as I lift it off, I come off in a flowing movement, and that ensures that there's no kind of flat spot sanded in as a start or stop point to the sanding operation. I just need to insert this clip here and talk for a second about how I'm holding the guitar as I'm doing the sanding. And you'll notice that often when I set it down on the belt, I am just going to let it sit on the belt under its own pressure as I start to move it. Then I put my hand on top, but the left hand here is only used for steadying. I am not applying any downward pressure. I'm just simply letting the guitar ride along the belt under its own weight. If I was to apply any downward pressure, it would cause it to sand too quickly. That's where I'd start to run into problems. So the left hand is really only guiding the guitar body. I'm holding it very loosely with the right hand, so that basically the guitar can self-level on the belt, rather than if I'm gripping it too tightly, I'm gonna either force it this direction or I'll force it backwards, sanding too deeply into one of the sides. So again, just very, very light, let it rest under its own weight, and then just guide it as you rotate it around the belt.
Okay, so just a couple things that I'll point out in conclusion. Before I went ahead and did my sanding, I'd actually put pencil marks all on the side of the guitar so that as I'm sanding, I can constantly be checking to see if there's any pencil marks still there. And I can see here I've got rid of most of them. There's still a few spots left. Just for the sake of time, I didn't want to do the whole operation on camera. And especially in the waist, I'm not going to get right into the waist like I said. I will finish that up by hand, and that only takes a few minutes. The other thing is that I have marked out a location on the top of the guitar here where the neck is going to go, and I just totally avoid that with the belt sander. I want to clean that up by hand because that needs to be just done very critically, and I want that perfectly flat and everything just for my neck angle. So I'm going to do that part entirely by hand so I can be in total control of it. The other thing is it's good to take a square before you start, and I had already done this, but to just check the sides and make sure that there's no extreme ripples, you know, divots, bumps, that sort of thing, because if there's anything too extreme, if there's a bulge for some reason, you're going to sand through that area very easily. If there's a dip that's significant, you're going to have to sand a lot to get that dip out, and you're going to end up thinning out the sides too much near the edges. So again, don't recommend you do this if you're just new to a belt sander or maybe getting started in guitar making, but for those of you who are doing a lot of guitars, someone like myself who's, you know, this is what I do, I need to save as much time as I can, you know, doing as much as I can on the belt sander would easily probably save me 45 minutes or more hand sanding. And once it comes off the belt sander, you know, you should feel a nice, even, smooth transition around the guitar body. If there's any minor imperfections, I will take those out by hand later, but you definitely don't want to be feeling flat spots or huge ridges or anything that you've sanded in. So hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos like this and just other behind the scenes look at what I do in the workshop of house guitars. Thanks for watching.